All right, welcome everybody to September 15th Bothell City Council meeting. Will you join me in a Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent. Thank you, everyone. We have almost a full council tonight. Deputy Mayor Spivey is absent and excused. He will be joining us for one item that is on the agenda, which we potentially might be moving up or trying to confirm the time that he's available. So that would be for the RFA discussion. May take place earlier, depending on availability. He's actually serving right now as a firefighter, so calls come in and go out, and so we'd like to work around that schedule if possible. Meeting agenda approval first, and then projected agenda. Anybody first? Councilmember Rayam.
So yeah, I need to leave at about 7 o'clock, so I was hoping that we could move up the RFA discussion to right after the visitor section.
Okay.
I'd support that as long as Councilmember Spivey can participate at that time.
Everybody agreeable with that? Okay. Anything else? Councilmember Sandberg?
I'd like to add 10 minutes to the block N contract discussion and 30 minutes to RFA.
So 60 minutes total for RFA. And block N, how many did you say? 15?
10 minutes?
10, so 20 total. Okay. Everybody else agreeable?
So just to confirm, that would be an hour then for the RFA and
20 for contracts.
20 for, yeah, I don't have an objection to that.
I have a slight problem with that just because I need to be leaving at 7. So could we potentially move the RFA up further, or should we do visitor section as regularly scheduled?
I think we need to pass our consent and have visitors section,
Okay.
and then go in the RFA. Out of respect for folks that came up to speak. Anyone else? A projected agenda?
Oh, I was going to do something from the consent, but you can do the projected.
No, you want to pull something?
I wanted to pull the September 1 minutes from the consent agenda.
Okay. Anything else on projected agenda? Councilmember Lamb?
I have an item on projected agenda, and it may not be necessary, but we had a kind of a lengthy discussion during our review of our ethics study session last night about communications with parties opposite in cases. And so what I would ask is that if any member of the City Council has had communication during a time where a case has been pending with an opposing party in a case on an email server that's not our city email, if they would agree to transmit that to the city attorney. If they do that, then there's no reason to have a meeting to discuss it, because I don't think it'll be an issue. But I just wonder if anyone has an objection to doing that. If you haven't had any communication with an opposing party on a private email, then it won't be an issue. And I was wondering, does anyone have any objection to that?
Councilmember Sandberg?
Well, I don't have communication on a private email, but are you suggesting that someone up here does? And I mean, because I can say that I don't have a communication, but if you want to have a discussion about it.
I'm not asking to go down the line. I'm saying I'm asking if somebody has had a communication with an opposing party in a case that the city has been involved with, a legal case, if they would agree, if they would transmit that correspondence that was from a private email to our city attorney. If somebody has an objection to that, then we probably need to schedule it for a conversation at a future meeting. If nobody has an objection to that, or if, as you indicated, you don't have any private email correspondence, then there's nothing to discuss.
Okay, well, I don't have an objection, and I don't have any email, so would that mean that that would mean then we would not schedule a meeting? Okay.
As long as anyone up here who has had a communication with an opposing party in a case on their private email doesn't object to transmitting that to the city attorney, and I'm not asking that they say so now. If they have an objection, I'm asking they say so now, because then we need to schedule it for a conversation. All right.
Wondering how we
No
get to the
objection.
bottom of that matter. I don't have an objection, but you would need to have the city manager ask council members specifically if that's occurred. Anything else on that?
I'm just kind of I'm confused as to how we get to the bottom of that, but
Do you have knowledge of somebody using the private email to communicate?
I do, but it was transmitted in an executive session, so it's not something I can discuss in open session. So I think your suggestion about the city manager is a good one, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Councilmember Ryan.
So we're still on the projected agenda?
Yes.
So I would like to add at the soonest convenience to one of our regular meetings to discuss the gap in the fire department's budget for training as part of the mid-biennium budget discussion.
Absolutely. Okay. Anyone else? All right, then moving on, we have our special presentation this evening. We have Renee Zimmerman here to accept this proclamation that I will read. So Renee, I'll read this, then I'll come down and hand it to you. This is a proclamation I'll make in regards to Diaper Needs Awareness Week. Whereas diaper need, the condition of not having a sufficient supply of clean diapers to ensure that infants and toddlers are clean, healthy, and dry can adversely affect the health and welfare of infants, toddlers, and their families. And whereas national surveys report that 1 of the 3 mothers experience diaper need at some time while their children are less than 3 years of age, and 48% of families delay changing a diaper to extend their supply. And whereas the average infant or toddler requires an average of 50 diaper changes per week over 3 years, and whereas diapers cannot be bought with food stamps or WIC vouchers, and whereas the supply of diapers is generally an eligibility requirement for infant and toddlers to participate in child care programs and quality early education programs, and whereas Bothell is proud to be home to various community organizations that recognize the importance of diapers in helping provide economic stability for families and distribute diapers to poor families through various channels, and receive thousands of diapers for Eastside Baby Corner to help families in Bothell. Now, therefore, I, Joshua Freed, Mayor of the City of Bothell, do hereby proclaim the week of September 28th through October 4th, 2015 as Diaper Needs Awareness Week in the City of Bothell, and encourage citizens of Bothell to donate generously to diaper banks, diaper drives, and those organizations that distribute diapers to families in need, and to help alleviate diaper need in Bothell. So, Renee, I'm hoping that you have the opportunity to come and speak and educate us all on this important matter. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. And yes, it is Diaper Need Awareness Week. So Mayor Freed, members of the City Council, and members of the audience, good evening and thank you. If you could give me just a few minutes to say a few words, I'd really appreciate it. And I want to thank you for recognizing Diaper Need Awareness Week. My name's Renee Zimmerman. I'm the executive director for a wonderful organization called Eastside Baby Corner. And this is Taryn Zier, who is a longtime core volunteer with a recently merged organization called North Shore Baby Corner that merged with us at Eastside Baby Corner. Now, government safety programs do not recognize diapers as a basic need. So that is why my organization partnered with the National Diaper Bank to promote Diaper Need Awareness Week. And I want to let you know the impact that we make here in the East King County area and Snohomish County. Last year, we gave out over 800,000 diapers to kids in need, and we are on the path of giving out over 900,000 diapers. It is a big need in our community. Now, we're not all about just diapers. Eastside Baby Corner was founded 25 years ago, and we are committed to providing free of charge basic essentials to children birth to age 12. Now, these essentials do not only include diapers, but they include anything that a child would need, from car seats to clothing kits, which include toys and books, from formula to porta-cribs, and anything else a child would need head to toe to thrive within our communities. And we estimate we are giving out stuff to kids, about 500 kids a week. So the impact that we make is huge. Now, we do not provide direct service to families. What we do is we work with the organizations to support the work of the experts out there. So your human services organizations that include your social service aid workers, your nurses, and your teachers, just to name a few. And we provide them the opportunity to order through us on a weekly basis, free of charge. Now, we collect these things. We collect the stuff from our respective communities, and we redistribute gently used and brand new items to these children within 1 week within King County and Snohomish County. and recognizing the importance that we give to the health and well-being of children in our communities, from cities of Bothell to Renton, from Mercer Island to North Bend. These communities continue to support us, and I want to thank you for supporting Eastside Baby Corner. We are working with 169 programs under 50 agencies. And like I mentioned, we just merged, North Shore Baby Corner just merged with us. And so in Bothell, we work with organizations that you're familiar with in your backyard. Head Start programs, Friends of Youth, Kindring Center, King County Public Health in North Shore School District, North Shore Youth and Family Services, and many, many other organizations. Now, I'm going to be typical of a nonprofit. One of the things that I'm looking for is I'm always asking for help. And one of the things that I need help with in order for us to make a bigger impact within your community is I am looking for low cost or free space of 1,500 square feet. In order to get donations from this community to then turn right around and serve more kids in this community. So what I'd like to ask is, Laura, can I give you a handout with my contact information? And then I also have information about the impact that we have made in your community and in our footprint in the last 25 years. And again, thank you for letting us have this proclamation and giving me some time to talk about Eastside Baby Corner. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the service that you provide to so many families. It's wonderful. Great. Well, we had one item pulled from the consent agenda. We have a motion to pass the balance.
So moved.
Motion and a second. If everybody can place their vote. And the clerk maybe won't display. How about all in favor say aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 6. And Deputy Mayor absent and excused. So looks like you'll be doing voice votes all night. Oh, you found it? All right, perfect. Great. Next on the agenda then would be the item that was pulled September 1st. Councilmember Sandberg, you pulled that item.
On page 9 of the agenda packet, there is a motion right near the bottom of the page, and it indicates that I pulled the July 30th meeting minutes to correct an error, and I know that the clerk was going to review the tape and see if a change was necessary. It was relating to who made the motion and who made the second. And then I'd also raised the question regarding the validity of the motion, and the city attorney was going to report back on that. So I was wondering if we had information on either or both of those items.
Do you have any comments, Mr. Beck?
Well, I don't know the answer on the minutes, except that those will come back to you once for approval at some point, once the clerk has had a chance to review that and bring them back on the agenda. With regard to the other question, I believe that's a moot point. There is an argument that can be made either way as to whether it was valid or not. I don't think we need to get into that, because I believe the intent is to bring any contract of that nature back to council for approval. So until such time as, well, that's just the intent. So I think it's a moot point, and I don't think we need to rule on it one way or the other.
Okay. Would you like to make a motion past the minutes?
I was just curious about the review of the minutes by Laura.
Hi, Laura.
I did check who made the second motion, you were correct, and I changed that. I can bring that for approval at the next meeting, or you can just...
Well, as long as, I don't think, if they have to come back, then that's fine, but if it's just a correction of Scrivener's error, then that's fine too.
Okay, great.
Okay, so I'd like to make, okay. So I'll make a motion to approve the September 1st, 2015 minutes as presented.
Any discussion? Seeing none, if everybody could place their vote, and the clerk display. Passes unanimously. Thank you so much, everyone. Next on our agenda, I believe, is the visitor section. That is correct. So this is a visitor section. This is an opportunity for citizens to address council for 3 minutes time. We ask that you fill out one of these yellow forms so our clerk can keep track of everybody's name and address appropriately. So I do have 2 of these sheets so far, and I'll collect the balance after we hear from the first two speakers. So the first is Gary Smith. Mr. Smith, if you come forward and make sure the little green light is on our little speaker mechanism. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, council members, city officials, and esteemed visitors. My name is Gary Smith. I want to talk about housing development in Bothell. My wife and I moved to Bothell in 1993. At that time, there were probably about 20,000 people here. Small town, it had a small town feel, lots of trees and open spaces. 22 years later, the city of Bothell has more of a large city feel, fewer trees and open spaces, and much more traffic. In the past few years, we've seen a very rapid increase in building, with city limits continuously expanding. Open and natural spaces and wooded areas are fast disappearing. For example, in our area, we live in the Southwest Hill area, about 3 blocks south of Bothell High School. There are, at this time, 103 planned developments, houses or townhomes that are either approved or in the planning stage. And this is within a half-mile radius of where I live. If I do a half-mile radius, we got 103 homes and townhouses coming in. Can you imagine what's going to happen if they all are built at the same time? My first question is, what is driving this rampant development? My first suspicion is that we have a majority of council members and other city officials who are motivated for financial reasons, either personal or because the city is trying to increase its tax base to pay for underfunded projects and a very expensive city hall. However, I hope I am wrong. I'd like to believe that the city council and the members of people who work for the city are guided by honesty, a personal and well-founded code of ethics, and that they are willing to and are striving to act in the best interest of the citizens of our community. I'd like to lastly refer to the Imagine Bothell Comprehensive Plan. A very extensive plan. The initial part of the plan sets forth a vision for Bothell. This vision includes 19 elements and I'd like to emphasize 6 of these elements. Our vision for Bothell, based on the above values, is of a community which, and these are 6 of the elements, celebrates and respects its picturesque setting by achieving harmony between the built and natural environments.
If you could just wrap up, sir.
Honors its past.
If you could just wrap up, that was 3 minutes.
Okay, I just want to read these other. Honors its past and provides a perspective for the future by preserving significant historic buildings. Demonstrates a commitment to the conservation of scarce natural resources through the actions of residents, businesses, and public institutions. Protects, preserves, and enhances those features of the natural environment. Promotes protection of native wildlife habitats. Provides a diversity of active and passive recreation opportunities through recreation programs. And finally, through realization of the preceding components of this vision statement, fosters a sense of belonging and pride in Bothell's unique and distinctive community and a feeling of well-being and commitment towards an ever-improving city in the future. My second question is, what have you done to ensure that these 6 values are also considered when a proposed planned unit development is reviewed?
Great. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night. Next person on the sign-up sheet is Stephanie Schreiger. Hopefully I got that correct. Perfect.
Thanks. I'm a neighbor of Gary, live in the neighborhood, and until a year ago, we lived in a condo just up the street. We didn't really like living in a condo right in downtown Bothell because we didn't really like looking into other people's houses when we were looking out of our window and all of the noise from all of the construction. So we liked Bothell. So we looked around and we found a really beautiful neighborhood nearby in this West Hill area. What enhances my new neighborhood is an 11.5-acre wooded greenbelt, which serves as a noise buffer to 522, in addition to being a precious natural asset to the community. The forest is currently being considered for development, as are many other such properties around Bothell. Our community is not asking that this council get involved in the permitting process or private negotiations. What are we asking is that if this deal were to fall through, we'd like this forest to be considered as for preservation, as an open space. And it's not a new idea where local residents and city government work together to make it happen. It happened with the North Creek Forest. It's happening with Wayne Golf Course. And there are so many other neighborhoods that are finding this is a real problem, and I'm really upset that it's not being addressed, this overdevelopment and incursion into neighborhoods, existing neighborhoods. Earlier in the summer, I came to a study session where a city employee was researching a plan to increase community involvement through social networking, workshops, and such. Ironically, there was a full room of residents present at that study session. And today I can tell you that my neighborhood is very engaged, and many are present with me today. You don't need to spend a lot of time trying to figure out ways to involve residents, because we are involved. We care about our community and city, and all you need to do is listen. And we don't feel like you're listening. Our message is simple. Development is inevitable and necessary, but it should not come at the expense of established neighborhoods. Old growth forests are precious resources and should be given far more consideration than they currently are. You can build homes anywhere, but you can't build another old growth forest. It's not possible. And and losing this forest would be a real tragedy. And I know there are other neighborhoods that feel the same way about forests and open land in their neighborhoods. And it doesn't have to come at a huge expense for the city. I know the city's always complaining that they need more money. But there are creative ways to develop the city without ruining it. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Have a nice night. I only have 2 sign-up sheets. Anyone else wish to address council this evening? Mr. Barnhart, if you want to give that to the clerk. I think I saw one in the back as well. Sandy? Yeah. So Sandy first.
James Barnhart. Last week I was at home watching the study session on TV and watching the exchange between Bob Stowe and Joe Beck and Andy Rayum and Trish Sandberg. And I became kind of concerned, as I always do, when people start talking about the state and federal constitutions. I kind of got so upset about it, I put my pants on and came down here a little after 9. Came in, raised my hand a couple times. They told me no public comment, so I waited until they said adjourned. Then I stood up and started to address a few issues, and I was outright laughed at by a number of council people and city employees. I was walking out the building trying to talk to Bob, and I got out to my car. Bob was walking to his car, Bob Stowe, and I had the door open and was ready to get in my car, and Joe Beck, who was walking west down the side of the building, turned around, came back to me, started to address me saying Jim, when he knows my name is James, saying, "Where you been, Jim? Haven't seen you for a while. Just get out of jail? Been in jail again for a while?" Then started to badger me about how old I was. He says, "Well, you act like you're 3 years old." Now, I was just a citizen coming down here, concerned about free speech and other rights, because I served 6 years in the service to protect those rights for everybody. You might not think that's much, but I do. I've taken this city to the state appeals court. on a state constitutional issue, beat them 3-0, had the judges, all three, laugh at their assistant prosecutor, went to the state Supreme Court, and won on a 9-0 decision. I don't take these things lightly, and I don't take being made fun of lightly by a professional when I'm a citizen who just comes down here and tries to participate. And if you knew what they're trying to do to me through their building department, trying to force me out of my house, all their illegal fines, their illegal crap with their fire department, it's a joke. And someday everybody's going to know about it. Thank you.
Great, thank you, sir. Do we have other sign-up sheets this evening? Ms. Gwynn, I think? Great, thank you. So first I have is Marcia Stedman.
Yes.
Oh, and you're here already.
I'm here, yeah.
There you are.
Ready to go.
Perfect.
I am here with questions too. I have two questions that are related. As I was looking over the packet for the Regional Fire Authority earlier this afternoon, I noticed that there might be other options besides joining a Regional Fire Authority. There might be other ways to address any problems we might have with our fire service. So my first question is, what problem will Bothel's joining the Regional Fire Authority address? And the second question is there another way to solve that problem? I know I'm coming late to the discussion, and there's maybe all these answers have already been set out. If so, I'd like to know what the answers are to those two questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Ms. Gwynn?
Good evening, Council. Regional Fire Authority. And I first want to compliment our paramedics. Earlier this month, totally unexpected, we had an emergency at my house, and my husband was in need of paramedics. And they were gracious and they were kind. They were very efficient, thorough, and they transported my husband to Evergreen Hospital, and I cannot speak highly. I would like to speak very highly also of Evergreen Hospital, their critical care unit. He's doing well now. When I talk about the Regional Fire Authority, it has no bearing on how well and how highly regarded the fire department is to me. So I just wanted to get that out there first. The RFA will cost Bothell citizens an additional $1.50 per thousand assessed valuation. In attachment 3 of tonight's agenda, the city outlined the additional cost to a homeowner for a $350,000 home and how you arrived at the additional cost. I disagree with how the city arrived at the numbers. First example, currently the city collects money from citizens for various fire services. In a memo from the Bothell City Manager dated January 15, 2015 to the ESCI consultant, Bothell City Manager projected the fire department fee revenue to be $2.6 million. What portion of the $2.6 million will now be going directly to the RFA instead of to the city of Bothell? This is $2.6 million that Bothell citizens will now pay to the Regional Fire Authority, in addition to the $1.50 tax levy / benefit charge rate. I do not see where this amount was calculated in attachment 3. And I do have a copy of the memo I'll supply you again. I previously supplied. The second example in the same memo, dated January 15th, the city manager wrote that the savings generated by Bothell's participation in RFA will exceed $5 million, and will further exceed the initial reserve contributions by other jurisdictions in the near future, example 9 to 10 years. This is money that Bothell taxpayers will be paying over and above what the other RFA citizens will pay. This is $5 million plus that could be used to remodel or build a fire station. This amount is not calculated in Attachment 3. Third example, I'm not going to go in detail, was the decrease in service to Bothell residents through an RFA and increased cost to citizens for EMS transport.
If you could just wrap up, that'd be great. Thanks, Cindy.
I'd like to have an explanation of what is meant by less existing Bothell levy, which is referenced in the Attachment 3. Is this a bond such as the police station that will be paid off, that you're using that amount to reduce what will be on a taxpayer's statement? Because the RFA is a permanent tax. The bond levy is 30 years or less. And finally, the numbers are not considering the capital expenses. The station location study was based on current population and not on where fire stations may be needed in 7 or 10 years from today based on projected population. The RFA committee decided not to adjust the capital expenses for future fire stations. Your required costs do not include what stations are needed to handle future growth.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And, ma'am, I think I said that's right. Please, if you could come forward.
Mayor, can I just ask Ms. Gwynn quickly which line on Attachment 3 you were referring to there? I think there was one particular line you referred to. I have Attachment 3, yes. Yes.
So we're just going to take one moment. And if you can make sure that your microphone is on, Bill, so this conversation is recorded. Joanne, I'm sorry. We're just going to take a moment. Thanks.
Okay, so it's the less existing Bothell levy line that you're referring to. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Joanne Allen. Nice to see you.
I'm Joanne Allen, and I'm currently the chair of the Parks Board. And I'm here in support of the Let's Move resolution because this is something that the Parks Board has been behind and working towards and very much supporting. And I just wanted to make that out there known and not be kind of the invisible board that you guys don't necessarily see. So, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Anyone else wish to address council? Mr. Paylor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Okay. This is actually regarding a topic that's later on your agenda, the sale of Parcel N that's outlined in red below. But what I really wanted to just ask for is some better communications from the city. I represent, as a real estate broker, property owners that are north of the library and then the property right behind there. So it's surrounded by the Horse Creek project in the front, Parcel O, the former bus barn on the left, and then wrapping around the other private property owner on the bottom end next to this, and then the library on the other side. So a lot going on around us. And in the subject that's on your agenda tonight, I just stumbled across this because I was looking at your agenda last night and I saw this contract, and I find out that 183rd that you see at the top, the intersection right there, has been planned to be a street punched through to 96 for the last couple of years. And in fact, we had a buyer of the property in the front who walked away from the transaction when they found out what the financial burden of doing that was going to be. It was just one more thing that they didn't feel that they could absorb, so they walked away. But we accepted that and saw the benefits of the street being put in there. And then and I've been talking to other buyers about this property for a couple of years, and all of that discussion has been highlighting to them that that was one of the things that they would have to do. Well, then I see this, the package in your agenda, and for the first time I learned that that's no longer the plan to build 183rd through there, and that it's changed to a pedestrian corridor. And all of a sudden that raised a whole bunch of questions, and it looked like the answers were maybe in the packet, but the pieces that I needed to see weren't there. The exhibits to show where the pedestrian corridor was, what was the status of 183rd. Thankfully, I saw Bob midday today. He put Erin in touch with me. I had a good conversation with Erin about an hour ago. She answered most of my questions, so I really appreciate that. But it's just frustrating that we could go on for the better part of 2 years based upon plans that we had from the city for 183rd and have lots of conversations. Other potential buyers have spent money with architects based on building that street. And then with no conversation with these property owners at all, we find out the plans have been changed. And then even backing up to that, as you guys know well, to the left of the picture here is Parcel O. A lot of money being spent to clean up the environmental. It's been going on for 5 years. That property is contaminating this property, so we're unable to do anything with it until that contamination gets cleared up. The school district is responsible for this property, but even they have told us they have difficulty getting answers about what's going on the city property.
Okay, do you want to take 10 seconds and wrap up?
Yeah, I'm trying my best here, but it's just, there's frankly no excuse for the lack of communication. The contamination on the Bus Barn property, nobody from the city ever told the private property owner about that. Again, I happened to stumble across that report 5 years ago or 4 years ago when it was written. And it's just been ongoing this way. And there's, I hope that we can do better than this. And that's what I'm asking for, is that communications with private property owners that are impacted by all of these city projects around downtown could be a lot better. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Are there others who wish to address council this evening? Anyone else? No? All right, I do have, our next item was scheduled to be at 7:20. We're going to bump it up, and that is the AB 15136, the Regional Fire Authority update. I believe Mr. Spivey is available, so we're going to take 60 seconds or 90 seconds or so and dial him up. So if everybody wants to get their agenda packet up, then we can get him online. Hey, Del, it's Joshua. Hey. So I can hear you. Can folks in the audience hear the deputy mayor? I can hear you. Can you all hear? I see nodding heads. Perfect. We're opening up the RFA discussion right now. Okay. And so City Manager Bob Stowe is standing at the podium about to address council. So we'll get in it, and when you wish to speak, we'll wait for your voice to speak up and out. Great. Thank you. Take the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. Just a few introductory comments. As you know, the RFA has been discussed by this body for well over a year. 2 studies have been completed, one a staff study and another consultant study in participation with North Shore and Woodinville. Council previously had directed me to negotiate with North Shore and Woodinville fire districts regarding the RFA, specifically the buy-in fee, as we might call it, that has been requested. Council directed that such a fee support a capital contribution amount of Bothell between $3.75 million and $7.5 million spread over a 5-year term, and that the RFA should commit to some financial improvements, contributions back to RFA facilities within Bothell. Representatives from the fire districts of both North Shore and Woodinville have communicated to us that they will only consider supporting a RFA if Bothell contributes $7.5 million over a 5-year period. The RFA Planning Committee that represents each of the 4 entities have requested that each entity formally consider whether or not they will support a RFA for further consideration if presented, as presented within the feasibility study, and with Bothell additionally contributing $7.5 million over that 5-year period. The RFA Planning Committee is also interested to know if agencies are interested in other forms of fire service consolidation, such as contract or annexation into a district. And you all know the RFA Planning Committee's next meeting is scheduled for October 1st, which is the reason why this has been scheduled twice this month since Council came off its adjournment. At the last meeting, Council directed staff to provide examples of how the regional fire benefit charge would impact various property types, in addition to the property tax levy that the RFA would charge, in addition to whatever property tax levy that the city would continue to charge. And that information has been provided to you in your packet. Staff doesn't believe that we have adequate time to really evaluate the costs associated with any contract scenario with a neighboring fire agency. Certainly that would involve reaching out and collecting proposals from those agencies, but that's certainly something that staff could work on in the future, but something that could not have been done within only a week or 2 weeks period of time since your last meeting. There's some information also that's been provided to you in response to Councilmember Sandberg's questions of this afternoon or of yesterday, and those have been provided to you in your folder. Staff stands ready to address any questions that Council may have regarding the RFA and to take whatever action that you deem to be appropriate related to the RFA tonight.
Great. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Lamb?
Thank you, City Manager. I mean, I'm sensitive to the fact that I understand that Councilor Rayam needs to leave. I have a motion prepared, because I assume that that's what you're looking for tonight is a motion for direction from Council.
That's correct.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion then, if that's in order.
Does it?
Are we going to be able to ask questions?
I think it's probably better ask questions first and then make a motion.
Okay. Okay. I'm just concerned that we're going to lose a council, and this is a fairly time-sensitive matter, that we may have a council member who needs to leave to do this, but.
Do you want to go first, Tris, and then Andy can jump in with questions? You don't have any questions? Okay.
Bob, do you have a copy of that email that has the table of the comparison of the jurisdictions with like population, budget, reserves?
Would you like me to put it on the screen?
Yeah, can you put that up on the screen? And there is one blank, which is Woodinville's budget, and I looked that up today, and from what I understand, it's $18.5 million. And the reason why I asked this question is because one of the things that I'm hung up on is this concept that Bothell needs to provide this $7.5 million buy-in, and why. And so I just want to make sure I understand these numbers, because when I look at our other partners in this process, am I reading it correctly that North Shore has twice the reserves than their annual operating budget? If their reserves are $18 million and their annual operating budget is under $8, am I reading that right? Is that right?
The reserves I got out of the feasibility study.
Okay.
And so that is what you saw in the feasibility study.
And then Woodinville, if it has a budget of $18.5 million for 2015, it's got, almost a 90% reserve. And so from what I understand with this $7.5 million capital buy-in request by the other agencies is so that we're bringing the same amount of money to the table, or an equitable amount of money to the table that these other agencies are bringing. Well, when I add that up, and to me that doesn't seem a logical way to start an operating budget and reserves. You decide what the operating budget is. You determine what the operating budget is, and then you decide, I need so much of a percentage of reserves. And we, as a city, have never operated on 200% reserves. And so when you add up it would make sense to get an idea of what an RFA's operating budget would be to just add up the comprising jurisdictions. That's $38.5 million. And then if you add the reserve line, that's $45.9 million. And so I just fail to see the logic of starting out an entity, an RFA, with a greater than 100% reserves. Why are we meeting this equity model of these partners? Why don't the partners spend down their reserves, like North Shore can apply their reserves to their debt? And I don't know what Woodinville's debt is. It just, to me, I have a problem with that. And I think that, and I have a problem with that from the perspective of a Bothell taxpayer.
Can you let him answer that
Yeah.
last question you just made? Why not spend the reserves to pay down the debt?
I can't answer that question. That would be a policy decision from each commissioner group. I would like to, I apologize for the blank space there. There were some different tables moved around, and I do have the correct Woodinville number. It probably is correct that it's around $18 million, but that would also include all their reserves and things like that. So their operating budget is approximately $14.6 million for Woodinville Fire and Rescue.
So equal to the reserves?
I'm sorry, $11.8 million.
Well, I guess my question doesn't really change much,
I think
but
one
thank
of
you
the
for the
reasons
new numbers.
reserves are higher is that fire districts have a different model of funding. And Director Shackman might be able to provide a little bit more information, but I do know that they try to keep 3 or 4 months worth of salaries. They also have 2 savings that they keep, because unlike the city that goes out and gets short-term loans, they try to meet any potential need that they've got with the funding, so that they have the funding on hand. So, would that be correct?
So, not to get too far into the detail, but this matter was discussed in a memorandum that Director Shackman provided to council at the last time, dated August 31st. That's also been provided into your packet. Goes into detail about the differences between the fire district and the city, and tries to explain, at least from our perspective, as to why the reserve levels are so much higher in the districts than they are in the city. So if you want to spend more time talking about that, we certainly can, but I'm not certain that it's necessarily going to be germane to your discussion later on tonight.
Well, to me, it's germane because it dictates how much Bothell taxpayers are expected to pay in with the capital buy-in. But
Correct.
I'm not.
That's the district point of view. It's not the city's point of view.
Okay.
Do you have any further questions?
I sent a bunch of questions, so I appreciate your answers. One thing that I didn't ask was, can we charge a fire impact fee? Can we collect that?
Can an RFA or
No, can the city? Could the city, like they collect traffic impacts fees?
It can
park
charge a
impacts?
fire mitigation fee to be used for capital purposes, yes.
Okay. Well,
some municipalities have chosen to do so, but I would say there's probably a handful of those that do charge that.
Well, in the interest of time, we can get to the motion, but I wish we could have spent a little bit more time on attachment 3, which talks about sample fire benefit charge examples, because that's the other big change, not just going to an RFA, but going to a funding model that collects a fire benefit charge. And, that is a big change as well. And but I think it's more important to get to a vote then.
Great, thanks. Councilmember Agnew?
Can I just say one more thing? I forgot to disclose that I had a meeting last Thursday, September 10th, with Kevin, I'm blanking on his last name, Coughlin. Kevin Coughlin, who's a Woodinville Fire Commissioner, and the fire chief, and Hugh Moog from Bothell Fire, and with Tom Agnew, and with Davina Dewar and James McNeil to understand RFA funding model, fire benefit charge. And I don't think that biases my position either way. But I just wanted to disclose that.
Who was in attendance again?
So myself, Kevin Coughlin, who is a Woodinville Fire Commissioner, and he explained, mostly he spoke about how his district funds their operations with a combination of a property tax levy and the fire benefit charge. So his perspective was very interesting and helpful. And then there was Hugh Moog, the fire chief, and then Tom Agnew, and then council candidates Davina Dewar and James McNeil. So there were 2 council members in attendance.
The problem is we've had a committee of 3 council members already meeting.
But there wasn't a third. There was 2 council members there.
You can't have a meeting of 3, then another meeting of 3, or a meeting of 3, then another meeting of 2. That's considered a running OPM violation.
But I haven't had a meeting with anybody other than what we've done up here and at this meeting. So,
but any member of the committee couldn't then go decide to meet with another council member. That would be a 4th council member. You're that 4th council member.
Oh.
That's a problem.
Oh, you're saying because of the planning committee members?
That's correct. That's questions the integrity of the process.
Well, my intent was just to learn more. I'm sorry I didn't think about that, but if the city attorney wants to say something about that.
Considered a running meeting, and something that when I first got on council 10 years ago was one of the things noted by the state, that there was a violation of OPMA because there was a running meeting of council members at that time. So I don't know where we go from here on that, but that is an issue that we need to address. So
Can I make a motion? Because I understand we're going to lose our...
yeah, Councilmember Evans, do you have any questions, comments?
I was going to make a motion also, but I'll defer to Councilmember Lamb, and if there's similar motions, then I won't make my motion.
All right. So I would like to move that we, as the City of Bothell, extend $7.5 million to the RFA process over 5 years, with a portion of that money to return to the city in the form of capital improvements to fire facilities in an amount to be determined in further discussions. I would further move as part of this that we have a... I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
There's a motion being made. Can you hear him?
Can you hear me, Councilmember Spivey?
Hello?
Dell?
Hello?
Yeah. We can hear you. Can you not hear me? Doesn't sound
If you can hear me, please try calling me back. Thank you.
Do you need to leave right at 7?
I'm sorry, the person you were trying to reach has a voicemail box that has not been set up yet.
This is Dell.
Hey, Dell. Can you hear me now?
I can. I lost you. I missed the motion that was being stated.
It is being made now. Councilmember Lamb has the floor.
Can you hear me, Dell?
I can hear you. If you speak up a smidge, it'd be perfect.
All right, sounds good. So I would move that the city extend $7.5 million over 5 years, with a portion of that to return to the city in an amount and in a form of capital improvements to be determined in further discussions between the member jurisdictions. I would further move that the RFA work to identify areas of operating costs that can be reduced, and that we have a joint meeting of the jurisdictions here in the Bothell City Council chambers, so that the people of the city of Bothell can participate in that process. That's my motion.
You don't have a second yet, but I just have a clarifying question.
Okay.
Did you mean to spend $7.5 million? Is that what your motion is?
No, it says to in an amount to be determined in further discussions.
Okay.
But I have a question then.
Yeah.
So, but your motion is to require $7.5 million buy-in, and then an amount to be returned back in capital improvements to the city of Bothell would be determined. So the $7.5 million amount isn't negotiable, but the amount that
as of now, I don't have a second, so I don't necessarily want to get into a back and forth on it. But I think that's a good yes. The $7.5 million would be a committed amount over a period of 5 years, as that appears to be the impasse that we're at.
Is there a second to the motion?
All right, I'll speak to my motion. Thank you. The RFA process, as we learned at our last meeting, is one that's going to take a significant amount of time to implement. There are a lot of different moving parts. The amount of capital contributions and where those capital contributions will be made is going to be one of those parts. The level of service, the kind of shifts that we would have, where potential new facilities would be constructed, all of these are items that would be worked out in the RFA process. What's clear tonight is that if we do not come to some baseline agreement on the buy-in amount, we'll never get to those other conversations. The RFA process will die. I think it's more important that we have a dialogue with our neighboring jurisdictions, that we tell them that when they are putting in a significantly higher amount of money as a capital buy-in, that we would not reject that out of hand and tell them that we're not willing to do that. They have made it clear that this is a sticking point, and that they would not move forward without this agreement that the city of Bothell would be willing to put that in. If we remove the fire department budget from the city of Bothell over a period of 5 years, it would not be a heavy lift to contribute the amount of money that's being discussed. This is not to say that an RFA tonight this is not a vote to pass an RFA. There's still many months and many details to be worked out. This is a vote, to be clear, to save the opportunity to enter into an RFA with our jurisdiction. If we lose this opportunity, we will not have it again anytime near in the future. It will be gone. I think that committing to this is showing that we're going to negotiate in good faith. It doesn't commit us to doing anything other than making a buy-in that is not even commensurate with the buy-in that the other jurisdictions will be doing. I would encourage my colleagues to support this motion, because I think the alternative is that this process is going to die tonight. So I would encourage a yes vote.
Councilmember Evans.
Thank you, Councilmember Lamb, for that motion. I also have a motion that's somewhat similar. I guess the difference in my motion is I'm reluctant at this point to tie down $7.5 million. This is an equity issue with the other council member, or with the other agencies, and so that's going to have to be addressed. And I'll be honest, I want the RFA process to continue to be discussed, and I believe that the financial, when the information that the staff has provided to us at approximately $288 increase in tax for residents of the Bothell is more than I can support at this time. But I do believe the RFA is important to move forward. I would just not like to tie down to that particular item. I would like to indicate that our city staff needs to work with the RFA committee along with the city council. I agree with your decision, your recommendation to have a meeting with everybody. I think questions have come up that need to be answered by the appropriate respondents, so I think that's important. But I would like to say that, and I'm not comfortable with the budget of the RFA the way it's presented now. I think we need to go back. I think the planning committee needs to go back, and we need to trim that budget some. So if we can trim that budget down, maybe the amount we provide doesn't have to be $7.5 million. Maybe it can be something less. I don't know. But I would like to see us continue based on the premise that the city work with the other agencies or the planning committee to help identify potential cost reductions in the operating budget, the projected operating budget of the council. So I'm hesitant to tie it to the $7.5 million. I'd prefer to keep it a little bit more broad because I want to look at everything on the table as far as the financial projected operating budget of the RFA and see if there aren't some places where we can cut back, which would then affect all the numbers across the board.
Is there an amending motion in there?
Well, my amending motion is pretty broad. I'd be interested to hear what the rest of the council members have in response to Councilmember Lamb's motion, and depending on how that discussion goes, I will consider an amending motion.
Anyone else? Councilmember Ram and then Councilmember Agnew.
So I need to go. So I'm going to just kind of throw what I have out here and not be able to vote. So the way I see it, this council item has been basically misnamed. You could fill in the blank, $7.5 million, $10 million. Let's call it $1 billion. It doesn't really matter. It's not real money. What is important to me, though, is what we've learned through this process, and it's a very simple thing. The fire department wants to leave the city. And it wants to leave the city because we have not amply funded our fire department. And to me, that is inexcusable. It's been a top priority of our budget. These people put their lives on the line. And I don't know how long this has been going on, but from what I understand, it could be at least 8 to 12 years that this has been going on. So to me, the important part is not to look to our neighbors to create a regional fire authority, but more importantly, it's to fund our fire department, not in a year, not in 18 months, not when the RFA gets going, but right now. So I want to put that out there. I agree. I don't want to kill the regionalization discussions because, quite frankly, I don't blame the fire department. If we can't pull it together and fund them amply, then I don't blame them for wanting to leave, and they should. I don't see any problem with that. I also have another thing, too, that the property tax. So the city has 3 major funding sources. It's REIT, sales tax, and property tax. And property tax is our most dependable funding source. So to give up our entire property tax as a city so that it can then the RFA could assess the same amount of property tax is a no-starter for me. I wish there was a regionalization technique that we could use different taxing methods because the property tax is our bread and butter during recessions. It's what we need. It's a stabilizing funding source. So I don't feel like we need to. I don't think we should stop having regionalization discussions. If that means we need to say $7.5 million with monopoly money, then let's say it. Let's say 10, let's say 15. It doesn't matter because at the end of the day, we still have to actually do the motion to make that expense. What I think is important is that we fund our fire department. We look at our fire stations. I went to a regional fire authority meeting, and they basically said like we were the horrible player in the group. Like we didn't have good equipment. We weren't trained. We didn't have the staffing levels. We didn't have fire stations. So to me, it would be, in the meantime, more important to get all of those things up to snuff than it is to wait and hope that the regionalization is going to help us. I can assure you one thing, it will make your taxes go up.
So are you voting yes or no before you leave? Or would you vote yes or no?
I'd vote yes.
Okay.
I'm not happy with the nailing the $7.5 million down, but I mean, that's what our neighbors want to hear us say. What I want to say to them is I think we should still pursue this. I want to make sure the fire department has an avenue if the city can't do what it needs to do to fund the fire department. I fully support them to leave the city. So that's it. I got to go.
Can I ask Councilmember Ream one question before he leaves? I think a few months ago you listed the amount of salaries that the firemen are supposedly making. I don't know whether those numbers were accurate or not, but I think you mentioned that.
Okay.
And so my motion is to look at costs across the board that would be my motion, is to look at costs across the board and looking at, I mean, we've all got to come to the table to get this thing resolved, all the players. And so that's why I want to keep it broad across, that everybody look at where we can reduce costs, because otherwise, you're right. Well, any way you cut it, it's going to cost us more money. But if we can reduce the proposed budget, it may cost us less money. So I'm a little conflicted.
Sure. Can I answer your?
Sure, you bet.
So it wasn't me. It was a resident that came to they requested the information. They didn't get it, and then I got it from the Human Resources Department, right. The actual salary of each of the firefighters, not their names, but their rank and their salary for the year. Now, it's important to note that that's not unusual. That's the amount of money that firefighters make. Not just in Woodinville and not just in North Shore, but from what I understand, we're not getting a getting a screaming deal, and we're not getting just totally overpaid firefighters in the city. That's how much it costs. So it's a if you want to take that one on it, I'd say that'd be at the legislative level if we wanted to really focus in on that.
All I'm saying is personnel costs are 80% of the budget.
Yeah,
and we need to work on. And I don't know how we can change that either, but if there's a way to reduce costs, whatever they may be, I would like that to be considered. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Councilmember Agnew, Sandberg, and then Deputy Mayor Spivey, can you still hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. Councilmember Agnew.
I second the motion just so we could have some discussion. I believe in the motion. I don't believe in all of the motion. We just brought up personnel costs. The individuals that they were specifically talking about in those personnel costs were firefighters that had been on the Oso landslide for months. They were also firefighters that had been over the wildland fire for weeks on end. A lot of that money came from the feds. The RFA committee's been meeting for over the last 2 years. They want financial equality amongst all the groups. That's why they asked for the $7.5 million. They have a higher dollar amount in reserves because they don't get funding till April, when January they have to start paying their personnel. So their business is a little bit different than the city's. I think Councilmember Ram was fairly correct. The firemen would like to get a fair shake. They feel like they haven't been getting a fair shake, and it's my fault as well as is the other council members on this dais and the previous council members that have been up here, and they haven't given the firefighters what they deserved and needed. Their training budget's been cut dramatically. 1/3 of their training budget is in the cost of water, so they can squirt a little water. 1/3 of their training budget. Some of these guys haven't had a class on hybrids in over 5 years, when I think the Tesla is probably one of the most dangerous cars out there to cut apart. So what are we doing to them? The RFA is trying to put a regionalization together to where all the people are trained the same, all the equipment's the same. They build stations where they need to be built. And yet the city of Bothell is still mandating that you need to give us more money or put more funds into the city's stations. I think a disproportionate amount of money once the RFA, if the RFA is committed and goes on, will go to the city of Bothell to update its station and to update its equipment. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that one out. I agree that we need to keep this process moving forward. The only way we can keep this process moving forward is by letting our neighbors know that we'll play in good faith, that we want to be equal financial partners in this. And I'll end with that right now.
Councilmember Sandberg.
Well, I want to start off with saying that Bothell has a great fire department. As we heard tonight, they come to you when you need them. They perform life-saving acts every day. And because we experience that, we feel as citizens, as recipients of that service, that seamless service, we feel like there's no problem with our existing fire department. And as you've heard tonight from some of the other council members, the one thing I've learned in this process is that our fire department is underfunded. We've been asking our firefighters to do more with less, and we don't experience any decrease in level of service because they do their job so well. The chief has communicated to us that right now they're only doing mission critical training, which is what Councilmember Agnew referred to. We received a department memo that said the fire department has gone without approximately $300,000 in this biennial, this 2-year budget, in necessary training and simple items like new bunker gear. According to the ESCI study, our fire facilities are rated fair when our peers are rated good and excellent. So we have been underfunding our fire department. And as Councilmember Rayum said, we love them, but I'm not so sure the feeling is mutual because we've asked them to go without. Another example is when the King County portion was annexed into the city and away from Woodinville, the Woodinville Fire District, their budget, Woodinville's fire district, took a $900,000 hit. So they received $900,000 in income from that annexation area when that was annexed into the city of Bothell. So they were receiving $900,000 for the services in that area. Well, when that area was annexed into the city of Bothell, the fire department's budget didn't go up by $900,000. And so, they're not insulated from general fund operating pressures. So far we've remedied this problem internally by requiring the fire department and all departments to make cuts. But I think that wanting to pursue regionalization is both about providing a standardized practice of care, but also going to another budgeting model. When I think about whether I would do a yes vote or no vote, I think a yes vote would signal to our partners our continued interest in planning. Now, I share your concern, Councilmember Evans. I am not comfortable committing $7.5 million, and yet I know I agree with Councilmember Lamb. I would believe, or I think, that if we didn't commit that $7.5 million, they might not want to proceed forward. But I think that we should have discussions about what that operating budget is, and then after you arrive at that operating budget for an RFA and looking at cost reduction, then you use that operating budget and the assumptions that you need to fund it to set the reserve, and then everybody's contribution. You don't set the reserve now just because other people are bringing in X amount of money. Because I don't think that's equitable. It doesn't seem equitable to our taxpayers. So a yes vote would signal continued interest in planning, and like Councilmember Rayum says, it puts pressure on the city and its citizens to fully fund our fire department. And when I say our citizens, a no vote would mean status quo, and I don't see that we can continue with status quo. I think that is a disservice to our fire department. And so what are some other options? Because the question was asked during public testimony, what's the problem that's trying to be solved? So I hope you have a better understanding of what that problem is and what are the other options. And so I would like to add as an amending motion that the city also consider a fire operating levy for voter approval in November 2016. That preserves another option for fully funding our fire department. If the RFA process doesn't move forward, we still need to do something to address the needs of our fire department. So, so I've already talked about sort of what my reservations are about moving forward with the RFA. A lot of it revolves around money and what it's going to cost taxpayers, and it's going to cost taxpayers more. And we just haven't had an opportunity to really talk about how much more. There is some data in this attachment 3, but I don't know if you know, we could have discussed that some more. And then if we try to achieve revenue neutrality as opposed to just charging for an RFA on top of our existing Bothell levy, if we try to achieve revenue neutrality, that is going to be a significant reduction in our property tax revenue, which is what Councilmember Rayum mentioned. And I really fear, as much as I want to make things revenue neutral for the Bothell taxpayers, I fear reducing our property tax, our levy, drastically, because in poor economic times, the city could be in very serious financial condition. It would seriously affect the city's financial stability. And finally, I'm not a big fan of the fire benefit charge. I've had an opportunity to look at that, and I think that the taxpayers can be served with another model, but so those are the considerations. It's not an easy vote to say yes or say no. So I guess I look forward to what the other council members say as well.
That opens the floor to you, Deputy Mayor Spivey.
And there was an amending motion, and I was going to ask Bill if he wanted to do his amending motion as well. So I guess we don't want to forget that.
There wasn't
I mean, amending motion to, yeah, and make an amending motion to consider a fire operations levy for voter approval in November of 2016.
How does that apply to the motion that is on the floor with going forward with an RFA? Would that be to fund an RFA?
Nope, that would be just an additional option that we could pursue to fully fund our fire
You can
department.
hear me? I lost you.
Dale, can you hold
Hello?
on just 1 second?
Hello?
I love this speaker system. We have a new city hall coming with a
Hello?
new speaker system. Dale,
It's faded out. I don't know what's going on.
how about now?
I got you.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Councilmember Sandberg is still speaking in regards, she made an amending motion to consider a fire operating levy. And there was a second by Councilmember Agnew, and she is explaining to me how this connects with the RFA motion. That's the underlying motion.
And how is it that it connects?
That's right.
So that
I'm asking.
the city would pursue that option, so investigate further that option as an alternative means to fully fund our fire department. No, as an alternative means to fully fund our fire department in the event that the RFA doesn't move forward.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'd make a point of order.
Yeah.
I don't think we advertised tonight to have a tax vote on the 2016 ballot. And I don't think that what is this amending motion has been proposed is in order for that reason. And it was seconded.
So the second is rescinded.
Okay.
So we'll just be adding that to a discussion, as Councilmember Rayu mentioned at a future agenda.
So Deputy Mayor Spivey, the motion or the amendment made by Councilmember Sandberg, seconded by Councilmember Agnew, has been rescinded and removed.
Okay, so we have the original motion on the floor still.
That is correct. And
Okay.
everybody's
I'm
had
the
a chance to
last,
speak.
and I'm the only one that has not spoken, other than yourself, correct?
That is correct. Wow, you've been following. Excellent.
The properly funding of the Bothell Fire Department is very important to me, and as Councilmember Agnew had stated earlier, we're all responsible for it, including past councils. We've tried to be diligent with the taxpayer dollars, but we've done it to the point where now we have to do something, and it will cost money to do it. What's most important to me is the stability of service to our citizens. And if that means that we have to go to an RFA to have a more stable funding source where they're not competing for dollars with other agencies, other departments within the city, then that's what we need to do. I feel that that's probably the thing that provides the most stability for our firefighters and therefore for our citizens in level of service, is to give them a sole source of funding, and that would be through the RFA. I appreciate the as a stopgap measure doing an operations levy, operations and maintenance levy, but to me that's a stopgap, that we would be going back to that all the time, and we still, in our other primary form of our budget, we still be competing with public works and parks and other entities just within the city. And that's why I would like to move forward and move forward with the RFA. That doesn't mean it's going to happen, but I want to move forward with it. And there's a point, if we keep moving forward, our citizens will have a voice in it. And if we don't move forward, we'll never have that opportunity to let them vote on it. So at this point, I think it's doing our due diligence to support the 1.5 over 5 for a total of $7.5 million. I agree with Councilmember Agnew in that we will see, without putting conditions on, we will see a return in that money in capital projects and training and so many other things that I just don't see the need to put conditions on there. But unless there's an amending motion, otherwise I will be supporting this one, but I would support an amending motion that also removed conditions and just moved it forward as the 1.5 over 5.
1.5 over 5? Yep. Okay.
You restate the motion.
So Councilmember Lamb is going to restate the motion. Councilmember Lamb is going to restate.
I wish I could ask Laura to restate the motion. So it says we would direct the city to extend $7.5 million over 5 years, with a portion of that to return to the city in the form of capital improvements to fire facilities in an amount to be determined in further discussions. To also to work with the RFA to identify areas where RFA operating costs can be reduced, and to extend an invitation to the governing bodies of the different parties to the RFA discussions to meet in the Bothell City Council chambers so that the citizens of Bothell have an opportunity to view and participate in this conversation.
So, Del, I don't know if you heard that or not, but it was reread, and hopefully you're clear with what you'll be voting on here in a second. So my comments are, I'm concerned citizens have brought forward concerns on the process and meetings happening and not having clarity. So if the conversation at the RFA goes forward, we as a council need to be specifically aware that ongoing, or I forget what it's called, running meetings where more than 3 council members are having connections, a serial meeting, thank you very much, in regards to this conversation. So if that's occurred to this point, which it sounds like it has, it cannot continue. So make sure that before you start a conversation with a council member, you check in, make sure they haven't had conversation with 2 others. And if the conversation goes forward with North Shore and Woodinville, it is disappointing to hear what Councilmember Rayum said, that they've started off the conversation criticizing our fire department. It's not typically how I would start off, not just typically, it's never how I would start off in a negotiation, is criticizing the party that I'm negotiating with. They didn't, so that was just something he...
Criticized the city of Bothell. They did not criticize fire.
So they criticized the city of Bothell, which is me. and which is each one of us that's sitting here in this room and the 42,000 citizens that are within our city. So yet again, not a way to be negotiating with the party that you want to do. So I find that highly disappointing, and I would hope that there would be some type of apology that would come forward if this conversation moves forward. Also, in negotiations, you can't just put your hand up and say that you're not going to move and refuse any movement on your behalf, that if there is a willing party to negotiate, you don't decide like North Shore did just to jump out of the conversation because they didn't like what came forward. So ultimately, those are my statements. I have concerns regards to the process and hope that if it does move forward, that this can be one that moves forward with integrity. All right, everybody's had a chance to
I
speak.
had a point of order. Did Councilmember Evans want to make an amending motion regarding the commitment of $7.5 million?
No, I didn't hear. I'm not overly comfortable with the $7.5 million. I didn't hear a revenue source to support that $7.5 million. But in light of continuing this, I do believe in continuing this process. I believe we have a good department. I will be supporting the motion. I don't know how that's going to be received by the other cities. Or the other agencies participating here, so I guess we'll find that out the 1st of October. So I will be supporting the motion and see where it goes from there.
Okay.
Well, can I make the amending motion then, that we agree to move forward as stated in Councilmember Lamb's motion, but not commit to a hard number, a hard capital buy-in of $7.5 million?
I think it sounds like the underlying motion stands. Deputy Mayor Spivey, can you hear me?
I can.
All right, so I'm going to ask for a voice vote for Councilmember Lamb's motion, seconded by Councilmember Agnew. All in favor say yes.
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 All in opposition say no, and I'm a no. We have 5 yeses, 1 absent, and 1 no. So passes to move forward with the motion of 7.5 over 5 years with a portion return in the city, and a further discussion with our neighboring jurisdictions. City Manager Stowe, any comments?
Here for the next agenda.
Okay, great. So the next agenda item is AB 15132.
Mayor Freed?
Yes, you're going to leave us now.
Yes, per protocol manual, I'm only allowed to participate in one topic, and RFA was my topic, so I will bid you all good night and have a good balance of the meeting.
Thank you for keeping us all safe.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. So it's AB 15132, consider adoption of a resolution declaring certain property surplus and authorizing the sale of such property, Block N, in accordance with Bothell Municipal Code, Chapter 2.94.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have much more to add beyond what you just stated, but this is a process and something we do for every piece of property that the city has sold, as would be the case when you consider Block N for later on this evening. And this simply is a formal resolution declaring specifically Block N surplus for purposes of a purchase and sale agreement, which again you're going to be considering later tonight.
So any questions?
I'd move the recommended action.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, everybody can place their vote. And the clerk can display, potentially. How about all in favor say yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? No. Passes 5-0. Next on the agenda is AB 15133, consider adoption of a resolution authorizing the city of Bothell to become a Let's Move city. And I do not have who is presenting because I have shit to my... Oh, our Parks Director is here.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'll back up a little bit before I give my brief presentation. When I came on board in May, our first Parks Board meeting, we discussed a number of items that the Parks Board was interested in accomplishing in 2015, and having the city sign on as a Let's Move city was one of those priorities, as Joanne, our Parks Board Chair, listed earlier today. So Let's Move is a program that's part of First Lady Michelle Obama's comprehensive Let's Move initiative. It's basically aimed at dedicating to reversing childhood obesity within a generation. So, how does that work? There's 5 goal areas within the program that a city would move to work on. They include start early, start smart, my plate, your place, smart servings for students, model food service, and active kids at play. And all of them combined involve physical activity, nutrition, and policies and programs to meet those goals. So with our present situation, we could probably easily meet goals in a couple of those areas. Have talked to a couple partners about working with them on some of the others. One of the areas that we fall short on as a city is we don't have programs where we serve food, but we do plenty of programs that promote physical activity, wellness, and so on and so forth. So it's hopeful that we could, besides ourselves, get some other folks involved, like the YMCA, possibly the school district involved in this as well. And in the 5 goal areas, there's tiered goals you can get. They're bronze, silver, and gold. Most of the bronze ones are pretty easy to attain, and naturally, as you go up the rung, it gets a little more difficult. But again, the Parks Board did go over this earlier this year, and it's something I think is a worthwhile goal, certainly a nexus between parks, recreation, and getting kids active and healthy, and so on and so forth. So that'll conclude my brief presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director Keats. Any questions?
No
Mr.
questions.
Evans.
I'd like to make a motion and then a
Okay,
comment if I
think
could.
that's fair.
Second.
I move we propose the resolution to allow the city of Bothell to become Let's Move the City. Let's Move City. And I just wanted to comment on it.
Who's the second? Me.
This is obviously something in the profession that we've been concerned about and looking at over years. And it's getting worse. There's more and more kids that get hung up on the electronics and don't get off the couch and that type of thing. So this really is an important issue, and I support it wholeheartedly and appreciate John bringing this to us. I'd like to just refer to the resolution on page 159 of the packet, and the 6th whereas states, whereas the city and other community partners, including schools, can work in partnership to ensure that they are safe places for residents to be active, such as routes to school and work, parks, sports fields, pools, gyms, and recreation centers. I would like to indicate that we need more parks in order to provide these safe places. We need a pool to create these safe places. We need more gyms, and we need more recreation centers. So let's just not say it. Let's do it. Let's move forward and get some of those things done. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? You do? Okay.
I just wanted to say thanks to our Parks Director and also to our Parks Board. This is a great group of people in our community who focus, are a real link between citizens and our council and our staff about projects that are important to them. And the fact that they've taken the initiative to look out for this program and encourage us to participate in it is just, I think, an indication of the work that our Parks Board does all the time. So I want to extend a thanks to them, and I'm happy to support this.
Thank you. So if everybody could place their vote, and clerk display. Voice vote again. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is AB 15134 to consider approval of an ordinance adopting code amendments regarding preliminary plat approval expiration times. Mr. Hassler is here.
Thank you. Good evening, Council.
Thank you.
I don't have a formal presentation for you this evening, but I did just want to point out that in your packet is a proposed ordinance for this item. Council may be aware that I fielded 2 questions from council members over the last day or so, one from Council Member Rayum, one from Council Member Sandberg. I believe you all received both a question and responses to those. Council Member Rayum's question is worth repeating because initially in your council packet I had indicated that we believe that there were perhaps 10 plats that this code amendment would apply to. In fact, when we looked in more detail through the city's permit system, it turns out there are two, one of which is the Jumonka plat, which you've heard about. I just wanted to make sure that that was clarified in the record. With that, I will be glad to answer any questions council might have.
Great. Councilmember Sandberg.
Thanks, Gary. So in this code change or language proposal, we would be approving a one-time extension of 1 year. And these are for non-expired plats approved prior to December 31st, 2009. So in the one instance, whose expiration date is coming up October 3rd, 2015, we would be extending it to October 3rd, 2016, and that would be an 8-year plat.
That's correct.
Like an 8-year timeline.
That's correct.
And then for the second one that you've given us the example of, if the applicant was to request the extension, this would actually turn into a 10-year plat.
That's correct.
So can we craft the language so that, I mean, an 8-year plat, we're giving the extension of 1 year on that 7 years that 7-year deadline that's since sunsetted, but a 10-year plat seems to be pretty excessive. So is there a way to craft the language to ensure that these plat approvals expire in 2016?
I believe you could craft language that would do that, yes. The Planning Commission considered a similar question when they were considering this item. We didn't know exactly which plats were impacted, but we did know that there potentially might be some that would be 9-year plats. There was a short window of time during the recession when plats could vest to a 9-year period. I don't believe many did. But ultimately their recommendation to you was, rather than try to discriminate on the basis of how long they got for their approval, just to give them all the opportunity for a 1-year extension. But I believe you could craft different language.
Okay, thanks. That's all the questions I have.
Anyone else? Councilmember Lamb?
I was just going to move the recommended action.
We have a motion by Councilmember Lamb, second by Councilmember Agnew. Any discussion? Councilmember Sandberg?
I'd like to make an amending a motion to the effect that I just explained, that extensions, 1-year extensions, should be limited to a total 8-year time horizon or expiration date of 2016, whichever comes first, so that we don't have a 10-year plat potentially on the books.
You have no second. Any other comments? You have a
Thank
second
you.
now for discussion. Would you wish to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I think that we are accommodating a single property owner. We're being helpful as a city in this instance. His plat deadline would be extended from 7 to 8 years. The other plat that could potentially benefit from this code change also expires late next year, and so I think it's appropriate that would be in essence a 9-year plat. So we'd have an 8-year plat and a 9-year plat. I think that is ample amount of time for applicants to have recovered from the recession, and I think it's important that we require incoming plats to adhere to our new codes and our existing codes, not be grandfathered under old codes. And so in this example, as staff has explained, they don't have to apply the new stormwater regulations in these existing plats. That's what we're giving them in allowance of that 1-year extension. So that's why I support the amending motion.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak to that, Mr. Agnew?
What do you think about that, Gary?
We're in deliberation.
Yeah, we need to. What's your opinion?
Yeah.
You're for it.
Well, You know, I think it has some validity. I was just wondering what staff thinks about that. Will that hinder us in any way? Are we being biased on certain individuals? I mean, it seems like 7 and 8 years is a prolonged period of time.
Well, so I can ask the question, just because we're trying to, in deliberation, to limit our questions. So the chair will ask the question to Gary, and I'll add on this question, staff levels, what you have currently to work on. If 10 plats were put back in to go through complete review, is that something that the staff would want to take on immediately, or is it best to keep what you already have? So maybe combine those two concerns.
Given that the proposed code amendments would affect at most 2 plats and would simply provide an extension, not additional work for us, I don't think it's a staff resource issue.
No, but if they expired, if all 10 expired and these owners would want to come back and go through the platting process for the next 2 years.
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question fully.
So if 10 plats expire.
There's only 2.
I thought there's 10.
He corrected it. There's 2.
Potential for 2.
Oh, there's only 2.
And they haven't expired yet. They are, one is due to expire next month and one is due to expire next November.
Okay. Would you like to answer the question that Councilmember Agnew asked then?
Could you repeat that, please, Councilmember Agnew?
Do you think it's a reasonable amendment? Do you think that'll put any undue burden on the city to extend and have some expirations up to 8 or 9 years?
Given the small number of plats involved, I don't believe so. As Councilmember Sandberg has pointed out, these 2 potential plats are already vested to the older provisions that they are vested to. We would simply be extending that by an additional year for them to come in for their final plat. But given the small number, I think from a staff standpoint, I don't believe it's an issue either way.
Either way.
Okay. So
I'll speak to the amending motion. So the concern that I have is that we don't know what this person's situation is. This person had no notice that this would be coming up tonight. We have no way of knowing whether this is burdensome to them or not burdensome to them. In the abstract, I think the issue would be entertain the argument. I think the problem is tonight we don't know what that person, we don't know how that would fall in the individual jurisdictions, and we're only talking about 2 people. I don't, when you said I don't think it's significant either way. I think absent, an opportunity for the person to understand what was going to be decided tonight, that it would be potentially different from the proposal, I would err on the side of keeping what Planning Commission has done and the work that they've already completed and support. So I will not be supporting the amending motion.
Councilmember Evans.
Well, I was thinking along the same line. I guess it's my understanding that we've had contact from one of the 2 parcels requesting this, whereas the other person we have not had contact. Is that true?
That's correct.
And we don't even know whether that plat, whether he's even thinking of doing anything with that plat, So I guess I would err on the side of giving that person the benefit that if something does, I don't even know if they're going to come back in again. If they do, they get a little extra time. It's 2 situations, so I think the Planning Commission, I'm fine with the Planning Commission recommendation.
So there is a motion on the floor. Everybody's had a chance to speak to that. We'll do it by voice vote. All in favor of the amending motion made by Councilmember Sandberg, seconded by Councilmember Agnew, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. So fails 3-2. The floor is still yours.
So as much as I would like to accommodate a needy case, I'm going to vote no for the underlying motion because I think our original horizon for applications was 5 years. We extended it to 7 years. Now we're extending it to 8 in one case, potentially 10 years in the second case. And I know it feels like there's only 2 cases, but it probably doesn't feel like that to you if you're potentially living next to them and you want, or you're living near them where you may be impacted and you want that development to not be vested under old codes and old regulations, but adhere to new ones. And so I'm voting no. I think we've been gracious enough in the extensions, and I'm concerned about extending even further.
Great, thank you so much. Others? So all in favor of the underlying motion made by Councilmember Lamb, second by Councilmember Agnew? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 4-1. Thank you so much, Gary.
Thank you.
Next, well, before I move forward, I have a written note here. We have a meeting, somebody has requested from our council on next Wednesday, the 23rd, at Bellevue City Hall at 6:30 p.m. to be our city representative for Arch. I am not able to attend. Is there somebody from council who would like to attend the Arch meeting next Wednesday, the 23rd at 6:30 p.m. at Bellevue City Hall?
Can we put that in an email? I don't have my schedule in front of me.
We put that in an email, Peter? Is there anyone else who might have interest?
I have another meeting that night.
Okay. Okay. So, Peter, we may have a willing member in Councilmember Sandberg and alternate in Councilmember Agnew. Great. Thanks. Next on the, do we have an executive session this evening? No. All right. Next on the agenda would be then AB 15-135 to consider approval of purchase and sale agreement of Block N.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening once again, Council. As you know from the resolution surplusing Prop N, or Block N, this is the purchase and sale agreement and development agreement for that block. The map on the screen simply illustrates Lot N in relationship to what will be a new Lot O, separated and divided from the former Lot O, made into two lots, now called Lot O and Lot P, but that's just there simply for reference. Those will be purchase and sale agreements and development agreements that will be coming to you later this year. The issue before you this evening is for approval of the purchase and sale agreement and development agreement with Main Street Property Group, also known as MSPT X1V LLC for Block N. Some of the key terms associated for this development and for this purchase and sale agreement include that they will be building a minimum of 34 for-sale townhomes. The purchase price for this block is approximately $36.10. That's based on the minimum block size. We expect that block size to enlarge based on some discussions that we're having with the neighboring property owner in terms of area that will trade with them. But we do expect that the minimum block size of 65,000 square feet to grow, therefore also increasing the purchase price to the city. But right at this point, it's based on $36.10 per square foot, or $2,360,471. Buyer will have the sort of the standard feasibility period of 90 days. Earnest money has been deposited or will be signed into a promissory note at time of waiver of due diligence. That's $100,000, and the closing is dependent upon the city vacating the site. As you know, this is the site for our Dawson building, and right now we're planning on moving out of that facility at the end of October. So closing is likely to occur in January of 2016. The price, as you note in the agenda bill, does go up if you start including some of the key infrastructure investments that we would consider above and beyond what a normal development would pay for purposes of establishing the value. And that's if you include the utility charges, that rises to $36.96 a square foot. Also, if you include the capital facilities charges, which arguably, although it's a code requirement, there's an argument that could be made that is an additional expense that's benefiting the city, although it does relieve the property owner or the developer from any storage capacity requirements on that site, but that raises the purchase price then further to $42.12 per square foot. It's a fairly straightforward purchase and sale agreement and development agreement. Much of the same provisions that you've seen in other purchase and sale agreements and development agreements that we have executed, and I would recommend that the council authorize me to execute these documents, and be glad to address any questions that the council might have at this time.
Great. Thank you, City Manager. Any questions? Councilmember Sandberg?
So I was kind of surprised to hear about the member of the public's concern about the extension of 183rd, because when I read the contract, I thought there was a road there. And when I look on page 263, I think that's where it talks about it. It says it's an access road and pedestrian corridor. So what does that mean? Does that mean that there will be two-way car traffic on this road that at all times, or because it was my understanding that we had planned that 183rd extension for connectivity.
So I'll ask Public Works Director Erin Leanhart to address that, since she's been dealing with that element of the agreement.
Good evening, Council. So the access road that's listed in the development agreement is purely on the existing access easement to the properties just to the north and east of Lot N. The pedestrian easement is anticipated to go all the way through, but Lot N will only be developing the portion that's along its frontage. So the idea would be is just the pedestrian corridor will continue to the east at some juncture. There will no longer be a roadway that will go all the way to 98th.
Wow, that pretty significantly impacts connectivity in that area. I mean, the idea was to provide, a grid system of streets to match the grid system on the east side of the multi-way boulevard. So I have concerns about eliminating that.
Right. Director, can you also explain the reason why the Public Works Department decided to go away from the requirement of building a new roadway in that area?
Yes. Earlier this year, Community Development Director Bill Weislogel and Public Works, we got together to talk about it. There's a significant grade change from between 96th and 98th, so that constructing the roadway was going to be very expensive once you got east of Lot N, as well as that portion of property on the library property is their stormwater treatment system. So in order to put the road through there, it would essentially eliminate not only their stormwater treatment system, but also some of their parking. So it became a very complicated roadway to push through there, and given that the block is fairly short from 183rd to what's 182nd, we determined that it made more sense to just make it a pedestrian corridor rather than a vehicular corridor.
And whose stormwater system is impacted?
The library, because they're just east of Lot N.
And they have a storm. Where is their stormwater system located on their property?
All along the north portion, there's stormwater treatment.
Okay. And then I know this is unrelated, but it's unrelated to the contract at hand. But what is the cleanup timeline for the new Lot P?
The same time frame as what it was under Lot O. We've simply, the reason we have divided now two lots, new Lot O doesn't have any cleanup requirements. There's no contamination that's been known to be found on Lot O, so we're able to move forward with that purchase and sale and development agreement in a much more expedient manner, almost following maybe the same timeline as Lot N. Lot P has a requirement that if we're going to provide a no further action letter, which is what's anticipated with a purchase and sale agreement for that development, that we have to be able to show clean groundwater monitoring for 1 year's period, and we haven't been able to achieve that 1 year's period yet. And so we're continuing to investigate and apply various sort of environmental techniques and injections into the ground to try to reduce that contamination that exists on Lot P, which is primarily petroleum products left over from the school district's operation when they own the property.
Well, I mean, I suppose that's great for the city that we're able to move forward with Lot O because it's not contaminated. But for the private property owner between the new Lot P and the Bothell Library, they might have a different viewpoint on that. And
Well, it's
so-
important to know we didn't cause the contamination. We're trying to clean up the contamination. We're doing everything that we can to try to clean that up in an expedient fashion. If not for the city intervening in this property or any of the properties that have been contaminated, they would not have been cleaned up.
And as
So
long
although
as
I
we
appreciate the
communicate.
comments from
As long as
the,
we communicate, because we've been called on that earlier about lack of communication.
well, just because simply someone calls up upon that doesn't necessarily mean that that's true and factual.
Okay. And then the other question I have is about the capital facility charge. We talked about it today. And you assured me that that the capital facility charge is just an estimate and that it is subject to our rates at the time of permitting. And I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on that, because on page 264 of the agenda bill, I think it's in the developer agreement, it says the developer shall install utilities included in this 2011 utility phasing cost partitioning and financing study. So they're supposed to install at their expense per this 2011 study. So I just want to make sure that their capital facility charge is not vested at any rate that's expressed in this 2011 study, that it is vested at whatever rates exist at the time of permitting.
Okay, it's mixing capital facility charge against the actual capital infrastructure that they will be installing. And so the capital facilities charge is noted on page 258 of 310, Exhibit D2, under utilities, permits, water, storm, drainage, sanitary sewer, per BMC 1811 stormwater capital facilities charge. And so whatever BMC 1811 provides for in terms of a capital facilities charge is what the property owner or developer will be paying at that time. And right now, we've estimated for illustrative purposes the current rate associated with that capital facility charge. If that happens to change in the future and the permits have not been issued, then a new fee would apply to the developer at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Question. Councilmember Lamb.
City Manager, thanks for this presentation as well as this agreement. I think I appreciate the work that the city has done to clean up, and I think it is important for the people of the city of Bothell to understand what just kind of what this project is going to be at the end of the day, or what we anticipate it'll be in layman's terms, because we get a lot of questions about what's happening in downtown, and so we're cleaning up environmentally contaminated properties, and what would be the ultimate end use on this piece?
The ultimate end use on Lot N, and then if I could take just a moment to talk about the uses on Lot O and P, because they are all connected. Lot N will be for 34, a minimum of 34 residential for-sale townhomes. Okay. And so the first for-sale product that we see coming in downtown will be built on Lot N. Also on the new Lot O, what's anticipated is also for sale as well as the possibility of for rent townhomes. Lot P or Block P will primarily be the location for multifamily as well as retail development along the Popkini roadway system that's being developed and an office component. And so a mix of uses on Lot P, but primarily or entirely residential for sale and then possibly for sale townhomes or for rent townhomes on both Lot N and Lot O.
And is this the same party that we did the Lot L agreement with?
It is. The same property ownership for Six Oaks is the same, as well as what was sold for Block L.
Right.
Between McMenamins and Six Oaks, this is the same ownership group.
And I know there was a caveat or a provision of this Lot L related to the changing of Horse Creek to the daylighted thing. Are we still on target for that?
We are still on target for that line to be decommissioned.
Okay.
So that we gain the full purchase price for the sale of Lot L, and then the same schedule for them to move forward with development.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for your good work on this. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Great. Anyone else? Is there a motion? Yeah. Oh, Councilmember Evans.
No, I'm supportive of this. I have had interest in several people coming to me and say, when are we going to build something down there that I can buy? I want to live downtown. So I think there is real interest in that type of product down there. So I think this will be a good development. I'm looking forward to it. I don't know if you would care to address any further, City Manager. There was some criticism tonight of the city's information or process here. I don't know if you have any other comments on how we proceed with that.
Well, I'm not prepared to provide any comments on what communication we provided, although we will address council in that regard unless Director is prepared to do that this evening. So we'll do that at a future meeting to let you know what we've done and what we could do better.
Great, and I think the idea of the road not going through, it was on an initial plan and consideration, and now that we've got into the detail and we've looked at it from an environmental standpoint of grading, the steepness and things, it's probably better not to have the road go through. We do have access at, 183rd, I think is the one that's going through, or is it 180?
185th?
Yeah. 182nd is not going through. Is that the one we're looking at there now? Right. No, it's 183rd that's not going to go through.
Correct.
But 182nd is there and does exist and does go through. So, okay. I think I appreciate the work you've done on this, and I think it's a good approach. I'm looking forward to it.
Do you wish to speak to this? No. So, it's the first time I've ever heard a citizen come forward and complain about having a very financially burdensome thing lifted off their property. So, what a wonderful thing that actually happened, it sounds like, to that property, that burden got taken off of it. Good news. I would hope it would be received in a different way. Anyway, is there a motion to pass the recommended action?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Anyone wish to speak to the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. We have no other items on the agenda this evening. Is there anything else for the good of the cause? All right, we are adjourned. 8 o'clock.
That's what I called it.